Hello, my name is Samantha Schubert, and I will be performing my third speech for Ben Nye's Oral Communication 1013.04 class. The age-old argument of violence in video games influencing children to be more violent and have more violent thoughts have been more prevalent with the recent shooting sprees. It is true that video games are beginning to address more adult issues, such as war, drugs, and sexual themes, including prostitution. I can tell you from personal experience that even though I play violent video games involving such themes, I do not have any inkling of violent tendencies. This is a response to the New York Times article, The Gun Game Complex, written in December of 2012. This article talks about how more video games are becoming more real, therefore children have the tendency to be more violent, by saying, regardless of whether money changed hands, this kind of marketing is deeply disturbing because it aims to connect the visceral thrill of video games directly with real weapons in the minds of a young, impressionable audience. So basically, video game violence is not directly correlated to violence found in today's youth. Personality and gene traits, such as depression and antisocial personality disorder, are a more accurate predictor of violent tendencies. The increase of the video game industry in a decade does not show a correlation to video game violence, but an actual decrease in violence. Television and video game use do not appear to be significant predictors of childhood attention problems. According to a 3-year longitudinal study of adolescents found in the Journal of Psychiatric Research, the results indicated that exposure to video game violence was not related to any of the negative outcomes in their 165 mainly Hispanic youths. Rather, depression, antisocial personality disorder traits, exposure to family violence, and peer influences were the best predictors of aggression-related outcomes. According to Brian Vashtag, writer of the article, Does Video Game Violence Sow Aggression? If video games do increase violent tendencies outside the laboratory, the explosion of gaming over the past decade, from $3.2 billion in sales in 1995 to $7 billion in sales in 2003, according to industry figures, would suggest a parallel trend in youth violence. Instead, youth violence has been decreasing. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports that adolescent weapon carrying and fighting decreased substantially in the 1990s. Homicide rates among youths also dropped substantially in the 1990s from 2.5 to 11.7 per 100,000 for middle and late teenagers, and from 2.5 to 1.5 per 100,000 for early teens. Even though games have grown more realistic, this still does not mean that children, adolescents, and teens are influenced to go outside and kill everything in sight. This isn't to say that video games reduce suicide rates, but it shows that there is no direct correlation to video game violence and violence in children. The big problem in our society today is the overdiagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Some have said that this is caused by overuse of television video games. According to the study done by Christopher Ferguson in regards to television and video games influencing attention problems, results found that internal factors such as male gender, antisocial traits, family environment, and anxiety best predicted attention problems. School performance was best predicted by family income. Television and video game use, whether total time spent using or exposure to violent content specifically, did not predict any attention problems or in GPA. So, in conclusion, although there are some studies that suggest a direct correlation to video game violence and violence tendencies in children, there is no direct correlation between video game violence and violent tendencies in today's youth. This is just another excuse for people to use to blame on bad things that happen to good people.